now it'll take a second for it to come.
And it covers YouTube as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, see, it's on.
Okay. Good morning. This is Russ on WSTX 970 AM. Giving thanks for another opportunity to be here on this side of the planet, on this side of Earth, to be able to talk on things among the many things that we can talk about. Namely, the things that we are going to be doing something about, and if not, you know that someone is doing something about it. Um, no callers that in the event that you do try to call, we do have technical problems from time to time during this show, but better must come, right? So if you do choose to call, I try to stay on a particular topic and welcome any reason that's going to add to it. Um, we have issues here in the territory that's connected to issues that are happening internationally. And while we focus here on the local cockfight, you lose sight of the things occurring around you internationally. Eventually, when we're small and we are unincorporated, we are a colony, the events that the colonizer participated in eventually winds up affecting us. And people, it is okay to be free. It is okay to be liberated. Our ancestors went through many difficult experiences as far as this life is concerned. And the process of being free has never really, uh, is still ongoing. It's never finished. We have individuals who have settled because they're benefiting from a status and a state that hasn't pushed the envelope. And because they have not, or they're not feeling the direct effects of what chattel slavery was like, you feel that you've come to a comfortable position or a status in life where you think, but you're not even concentrating on whether or not you're free or not because of the things that you're experiencing right now. Some of us are benefiting from it, and some of us aren't. And those who aren't still not thinking or feeling it has to do with the process of being liberated, of being free. When we get so indoctrinated that we have to believe that and have fear that because we've been part of the fabric of a colonizer for so many hundreds of years, that to do without the colonizer would mean uh, failure and defeat. And that's part of the colonized mind when still the fear is instilled in you to move you away from the ability of being free, to even equate that with not being equipped enough, not being intelligent enough to run your own affairs. That's colonial processing. That's a mindset that the colonizer has embedded in people. And in many ways have the advantage because they have all the necessary studies to prove who acts on what, and what to feed the people, and what and who amongst the people will benefit from the type of indoctrination that they process. Um, we see this occurring right now in South Africa, where the South Africans are now doing the bidding of the South African government that's doing the bidding of the apartheid system, where they are attacking African nationals just because they're not South African born. And to that, South Africa's still going through the liberation process. They're not free. They don't control themselves. The government that's put in place is the government that the colonizer designed and left for them to start to fill, and to the point where the South African government now, who has South Africans filling a lot of these positions, are doing the bidding of the colonizer to the extent that they're even getting violent with it. And that's part of the colonial mindset. That's what um, the processing of indoctrinating things in people who have spirits that would entertain that, because many wouldn't not entertain these things, but they know for a fact that amongst people there's always a one or two or three or four who is going to do the bidding according to. And just looking on that and what South Africa represents in recent events, it is only clear to some that that would be occurring in South Africa right now, when they're still in the genesis of getting rid of the colonial state left by the apartheid regime, right? And it's gotten to the point where any African state that speaks out against an ongoing system is expected to be targeted, for or to cause discord amongst the people. And they usually are good at separating and instituting and instigating differences to the point where civil unrest amongst the people takes place and takes precedence, and it distracts from everything else, the chains that are around their necks. Equally so in this territory, as we're getting ready into this political arena, this political events, where hypocrisy and lies is the order of the day. When we, who are the descendants of slave and the ascendants of the enslaved, are here in this territory, and because of the ethnicity and the race, because of that, just that, and because the colonizer have left the structured government in place and we're filling these things, we believe that change is going to come, and change will come. Better must come, but it's not going to come as needed if we continue to practice politics as usual. If you don't stand in clarity on the things you stand for, then we're not going to progress anywhere, because there aren't any clearly drawn lines. Politicians leave lines, gray areas, and at this particular point in time, we cannot accept gray areas. You can't straddle the fence. You must choose a side. You're either right or you're wrong. And no matter what side it is, it's okay. That's the essence of life. But those clarity has to be drawn. If we as a people are going to progress from where we are, things are not necessarily getting better in a sense, but it is getting better, even with the suffrage that's expected to come. We're in a small territory that's importing foods. The amount of foods and the quantity doesn't make any sense to any competent and intelligent people. And you cannot rely on a government that's controlled by a colonial system who have people who are colonized in their mind to ever think that they're going to produce an agricultural industry here in the territory enough to protect our people or protect the people, God forbid, if they have to go 1 year, 2 years without that importing of food. And when we as a people keep on thinking that the responsibility is on the government, that's when the devil smiles. That's when the colonizer smiles. Because we're depending on people who are performing, who are conducting a particular structure in government, thinking that they're moving forward, and we're not. We're not. You know, we're treading water unnecessarily. We're spinning wheels. And if you conduct politics as usual, where there isn't an honest sincerity, but there is a make believe, where truth is not going to be a constant, you're only going to get as far as you think you're getting, but not as far as we need to be. So, what is going to change at the end of the day if you close your eyes and you put the necessary people in there to run government? It would mean that we have uh, an agricultural product being had that can benefit all three islands sustainably. It would mean that. It would mean that we wouldn't be experiencing the amount of abuse you're getting as far as the consumer is concerned when it comes to food and gas and utilities. It would mean that we wouldn't be experiencing that. There's no two ways to go about it other than to eliminate it. But if we play politics as usual, they're not going to be eliminated because at the end of the day, politics as usual plays into the hands of those who are manipulating the system that we're suffering from. You know, we're all given a measure of intelligence. How it's accessed and how it's used is two different things. Integrity is what we're lacking in this territory tremendously. And don't let the political season with these politicians back and forth now starting to use this word. Yeah, you hear it here, integrity, as a campaign word, as them throwing it back and forth, because integrity would then lend you to ask them to sign on to be willing to have a deep background check so we can see what their records are, how many closets and how many skeleton in closets you have. What are you constant on? Because the last time I checked, if you think that there is room for hypocrisy and lies in government, then we can't complain about the conditions we're suffering right now. It is plain to see that in 2026, being intelligent people, that we don't have hospitals here. It is plain to see that those temporary units that were put in place temporarily has been accepted as permanent structure. When are we going to stop the foolishness? When are we going to prove to these individuals that we're not insular? One of the one of those of you who think that you're entitled to be involved in important things, and the only reasons why you think so is because you want your name to be called. When are you going to go and sit down? When are we going to get to the place where we're not going to be drawing references on our ancestors, 1848, 1878, and 1733, just for reference, and you don't live it in spirit? The reason why 1878 took place is because 1848 things have never changed. And since 1878, things still have not changed. And what are we doing about it? We're not doing much because those individuals who want to participate in these things don't carry the spirit of liberation. They're just happy to be able to fill position and post under a colonial system at best, and they feel important. They feel that they have achieved things, but in essence, how and to what degree have they achieved these things? When you seek to do right, and truth is a constant, a lot of things expect for a lot of things to become difficult because you speak in truth and it's a constant. And no matter how you bring it to a people, if you're colonial minded, if your spirit is lost, if your spirit is not lost, but your spirit is one who promotes enslavement, you're going to always try to make things difficult for those of us who are liberated in mind and spirit. And it just so happens that a lot of those individuals wind up in the government offices who are there to do the bidding of the people. We can only stop this when the people stop, or when we learn what exactly the difference between the government and the people is. When we have clarity of what that is, we can move as a people. And when we're put in a position where life is a struggle, and it's done so by design to keep you suffering, to put you in a position of hopelessness, and to put you in and to condition your mind and spirit to believe that here comes the Savior. We can't expect to progress as a people, not realizing and not addressing that kind of mentality, because it's a knowledgeable people who is strong. And we have to stop giving people fish and teaching us and teaching people how to fish, rather. And when we get to that place, and it takes time, but that process is a difficult process because when people are suffering and they're conditioned to suffer and not achieve, even when they think they're doing so, when that time comes that you have to teach someone to fish and not give them a fish, there's a lot of people who are going to get angry because they're expecting you to give them a fish because everybody around them is giving them fish. So when those of us who come before you to teach you how to fish, we're going to be met with a spirit of indifference. There's going to be a pushback. And this season of politics is giving people fish. They're not teaching people how to fish. And when complaints are made, it's made after the fact. It's always reactionary. It's always depending on. You don't need for any government to authorize the teaching of history if we can acknowledge that some of us have property, some of us are in the education system, some of us are friended up, some of us are connected to status quo, some of us are connected to individuals who know structure in the government and grant writing, and those who are advocating rather than that. So how can we have an independently created schools apart from what the government, public government, right, is offering, when we don't control the government anymore, apparently? But it's an ideology that's spread across people that looks like you and me, that we grew up with. Family members, friends, relatives that carry the spirit of slavery. And it's difficult in time because how does that fit into the fabric of how and what we're living by right now? And we have good people in government right now who are fighting, doing the right thing. Though when you look at the ratio, it's not many, but we do have them fighting, showing some level of integrity. And then you have those with the deceptive spirit who walks around criticizing government apart from the division of government that they work in. So when are we going to get to the point where there's honest spirit in here who's speaking to liberation as opposed to some kind of processing that's going to allow them to achieve something under a colonial system that they can brag about? But liberation is not coming. To be free is not coming because it scares people. And out of ignorance and out of conditioning, they present the element of fear that has nothing to do with the process. They're conditioned to put things in your head or to put obstacles in your way that is just that. They're mirages. And we would know by now that the ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people. What's the conditions of our homes here right now? The strongest weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the minds of the oppressed. What's happening in our individual homes right now, where our little children are? What's the mindset of the parents of the children of our future? What's the mindset of the individual, the adults, the generation responsible for bringing them into this world and to making sure that we can secure, and honor them? What's happening with the mindset and the spirit of the parents of these children? And when I say parents, not just parents, it's the whole community, the village we're talking about, that we don't have too much anymore. How are we going to progress as a people when you have the world of information because people are seeking information, but the spirit of liberation is completely absent? People are talking from now until kingdom come about the Epstein and the Epstein files. If there wasn't any Epstein files, what would you be talking about? What would you be doing? And you speak in reference to the Epstein files as it affects the colonial system that we're operating in and under. You get distracted by that and the evidences and not evidences, and you have no control of what's occurring other than when those that's controlling the structured government right now, the finances, the financial world, they determine how elections are run, believe it or not. They determine how elections are affected. Once we remain in that system, they determine that the outcome of our elections is going to be based on what those individuals choose to do, choose to ignore. That would allow certain things to occur here in this territory, election-wise, because we're following that structured form of government, of governance, the banking system, the trade, the economic structure of the world, basically. And that's the reason why anything that takes away from that structured learning, that structure that where they control things, whenever they see something counter to it, that's why they seek to destroy. They meaning families, companies, corporations, organizations, religious institutions, churches, systems of learning, universities, colleges, media. It's not conspiracy theory, it's a reality. So while we stay here focused on this electoral season and we start to form allegiances and you start to electioneer, we do all these things, we feel good because among ourselves it's time to do a little party here, a little party there, come together with a common cause, so to speak. But what's the underlying truth in these common cause? If we're not going to go to war with clean and proper spirit, even if you were supposed to win one of the battles, how long is it going to last? We need lasting change in this territory. And if You think it's okay to say a little child that's coming out of a household we don't know, there's no guarantee if they have both parents in the house. And whatever parents is in the house, you don't know how they're treated. You don't know how they're being fed. You don't know what kind of psychological trauma they might be experiencing from parents who themselves experience psychological trauma and otherwise being affected. Because don't forget, the nature of the village is lost. And the one places where we would expect our children to have some form of refuge of being feeling safe is our systems of learning, our schools. So if our schools right now are being disrupted, being challenged, what's to say about our little children in the future, 20 years from now, 25 years from now, when many of us are not going to be here? What are we honestly going to do? I'll tell you what it looks like it's going to do. Everybody is doing what satisfies them right now, even when they make believe they're doing things for someone else. At the end of the day, it has to be that they're doing things to satisfy self. And that's not a good thing. So the answer to everything else is always in us, what we are going to allow, what you will not allow to happen. Again, the political season where it's a season of hypocrisy and lies and everything else that the colonizer smiles about. So if we're not going to be clear to people, if we're not going to be honest to people, if we're not going to allow truth to be a constant before people, we're not going to get anywhere other than where that behavior, that particular time of involvement is going to allow and achieve. That's as far as it's going to go. So, in essence, if many people get into these offices, and some will, at the end of the day, what are they truly going to change to accomplish liberation to the point where we know for a fact that we secure the interests of the future of our children, and in terms of secure the interests of the people here in the territory? Every day, we find out that many of us are doing wrong. We have sticky finger culture. Things are getting so bad that people are, we developed the sticky finger culture. We have a lot of fire finger discount specialists. And we have to get to the point where we're either going to be honest or we're not going to be honest. We have to get to the point where truth is really the constant. And if you don't want truth to be the constant, then you as a politician will prevent and start to do things, politics as usual. And again, we can't expect for things to change. Well, I guess people have different uh, reasoning as to what that change is. But if we were expecting change to have a true agricultural product here, not to talk, everybody like to talk agriculture, it's a bunch of foolishness and a bunch of hypocrisy with that talk themselves. Some of them haven't even put their hand in dirt, but they want to talk agriculture, right? Not a problem. When are we honestly going to bring forward an agricultural product in the territory? When are we going to be honest enough to know that there's billions of dollars for schools here in the territory, but yet the foolishness of the schools we see surrounding us, where schools are shuttered right now. Nothing is wrong with the structure of the school, but they're just shuttered. If we didn't have access to billions of dollars, that would be one thing, but that's not the case. So how can any intelligent person who have integrity accept foolishness when it's being spoken before them? And the longer we take to play politics, to play nice, to say this way to that person, is the longer they smile, because they know that if we're serious about it, then it would be a 1733 moment when it comes to truth. without apologies. You would not accept people, even representing you, have people speaking down to you while they're trying to tell you and sell you things and extract the millions of dollars that's supposed to be put into the territory to benefit the children and to benefit you, the adult. We can't even continue to blame the younger generation. Stop that foolishness. Stop the hypocrisy. Because it's not the younger generations that you have to blame. You have to blame ourselves. We're the generation who brought them here. Set everything up that they're going through right now. If you insist on the carnal activity, what that looks like, and you want to expose your children to it, how do you expect for them to be able to discern when they have characters trying to abuse them as children? How? You can't tie the Epstein plague that's in the territory from your behavior and how you try to condone it and how you try to work around it. And this is what politics as usual does. It's for the mindset it does. You know, it does for these shiny material things over your neighbor next to you, your friend next to you, someone who's not your neighbor nor your friend. And you thank the Almighty of righteousness that there's good people in this world that these things don't affect. But when you take the average, and don't take my word for it, you know, go and look for it. What character of persons are usually the persons who participate in the institute of politics? Give the average nature of that character. And then now we have to look into the territory to find out uh, how many carry that common character and to make sure that that particular character uh, doesn't fill any of the positions in government when it comes to doing the bidding of the people, because that's the problem we have right now. So when is honesty going to come forward? Because truth is a constant, and sometimes you tell people truth, they say you're abrasive. You say kindly, they still you say you're abrasive. You hold no arguments, they still say you're abrasive. They say you're antagonistic. Well, what would they be calling our ancestors when we're talking about liberation and being free and not accepting foolishness? As if you have time in life to continue listening to foolishness, to talk things and reason where reason is not needed. Facts and truth are there. And we have people having transient people come into the territory deciding for you because you have not decided for yourself, because that's part of the system that the colonizing structure have left you with, an identity crisis. People talk about the Democrats and the Republicans, and they sit down and they want to champion these things and they want to criticize what party do this and who's much. That's all foolishness and a waste of time, because now you're taking up your time sitting in a structure in government that the colonizers have left for you to follow. You're following it to a core, because now you're taking the seats and you don't even know your own identity. Because if you honestly did, you would not be following the foolishness of whether Democrat or Republican, because you're two different wings on the same bird, different side of the same coin. But because you're benefiting from it, because you agree with certain things that one particular party is doing, and it lines up with the things that you believe in, all of a sudden you believe you're achieving something. It's a weak mind. Getting lost in the sauce. You drink the Kool-Aid, like a good colleague of mine would say. Yeah, you drink the Kool-Aid. You follow the colonizer that says walk to your left, you go to the left. That's the law that the colonizer lays for you. You say go to the right, you walk to your right. Because you want to be in conformity with what the colonizer says, and you want to follow laws, and you want to be law abiding. Who does it benefit? When you're law abiding according to laws that they put down that benefits themselves. You don't have to be scared, And you don't have to be frightened, because when integrity comes before people and liberation comes before people, it helps people who doesn't have integrity and who doesn't have the liberation spirit to galvanize themselves together. So if there's one thing the truth and integrity does, is it makes the opposite of huh, gather together. They galvanize together. Allegiance becomes strong amongst. But at the end of the day, that and those allegiances still have to answer to what? Truth. We can't push ahead people with politics as usual. It's not going to get us anywhere. You speak truth, it affects certain people. And if you're being affected by truth, well, my son, you have to get your spirit strong, because truth is not going to go anywhere. So weather the storm, because it's truth that affects our little children, nothing else. If you choose to call, numbers are 340-773-0490 and 340-773-0390. Um, I had a couple of experiences with people. People, we have to really, because we're we're in a particular place in time now, history here in the territory, where there are two economies, and we have transient people moving in and out this territory. And while that's occurring, many are coming here not to live with us or really to live amongst us, but they're coming with a sense of entitlement. And in the process, lately, you see it starting to stream into our governments, where the descendants of the slaves and the ascendants of the enslaved work and live. And they're bleeding into the system, not honestly with the sense of living with or among. That's just the truth. So, what does that look like? If we're supposed to be liberated, or if we're supposed to be uh, proud that our ancestors were able to rebel, a colonial system, an imperialistic system, where your God given right to live free among this planet on earth was deprived of a people, and in the most hideous, satanic, evil ways. And because that immediate experience isn't being had, it doesn't mean it's not occurring in a different way, which it is right now. And because we are controlling these things and we're benefiting from these things, we think that these conditions that doesn't exist. It does. You look around you, if it's 2026, who you're going to blame for the condition of the territory? Who you're going to blame that in 2026, with all the billions of dollars, everybody in these offices have been coming before you to admit and say that we have and what they have achieved in far as these monies are concerned, and the place still look the way it does. Where even our judiciary is compromised right now. You expect to get any judgment on the rule of law when you have people who are sitting there. I know one who's a straight racist right now, and there isn't anybody that can tell me that he is not a racist. Based on my experience living in my skin, I could tell you with my eyes closed who a racist is. And we have one currently in the judiciary that think that all you have to do is let them know eye to eye that I am not beneath you. I am not any of the ignorant Negroes you're accustomed to dealing with and threaten. I'm not one of those that's going to bow to you and give you a sense of entitlement because of the color of your skin. Know that. Where the rule of law, they think they control. They don't control the rule of law. We do. As corrupt as it is, as unlawful as they choose to respond to qualified documents presented in courts of law, we control that, not them. So when we get to the point where we know that we control it, they too would not be looking at us with a sense of superiority. Anything you do that benefit the people just about here in this territory, as far as the judicial system is concerned, the majority of it is not done just. You're not getting a remedy in courts, in their courts. You're not getting a remedy even when you apply the law that they take an oath to uphold, because that's the nature of the beast. So you can't always rely on a system and a structure that somebody put before you, because then you have to question who gave them the authority to create that in the first place. But here you are living under it, with it. It's part of the fabric, right? So the most thing you can do is to honor the system according to the rule of law. So even when you try to be honest according to the rule of law, you're still being met with dishonesty according to what is actually written in law. And if we think the judicial system is ever going to change here, all you have to do is look at how it's structured from the very top to the bottom. The United States Supreme Court, the highest office when it comes to judicial matters in the United States, under the territory, under the flags. That's the most corrupt judicial system in the whole of the United States. Yeah, the US Supreme Court. Know that for a fact. And if you think you're going to get judicial remedy for a system that was structured and it is structured the way it is, then we're a lost people, right? Waiting for someone to identify you, come to save you, and to keep on giving you fish. The US Supreme Court, the justices are appointed by a president. And that president is going to have his own personal ideologies. And if he is left for appointing these justices, obviously, majority of the time, most often, he's going to appoint one that lines up with his personal ideology. And the justices are there for life unless they commit some form of treason that can be proved otherwise without question, fact verifiable, for them to be removed. So question how the balance of this court system is going to be if it's predominantly of one particular set of people that has a particular type of ideology that they claim that they don't have, which is any intelligent person would tell you can't ever happen. So we're being run basically by a system that's designed, and it's funny when we read into things and you hear the US say, well, democracy, right? And when democracy in its basic form, in the basic sense, is majority rule. So if you go to the Supreme Court and the laws are there for them to present, not for them to opinionate on, and they've been opinionating on the law themselves, then it means that the Constitution has not been settled because it's left up into interpretation and opinion as opposed to what is actually written, right? And even on the level right now, you still have justices who are arguing the difference between originalism and textualism, right? And that's how we process things here. So when we are an unincorporated territory and it is structured under the US system, laws, and the Constitution. We're trying to uh, mirror that. What do we expect when we are a colony full of former, I should say, the heirs, the descendants and the ascendants of the slave and the enslaved who are here? What does that say about us when we're depending on a system of government, a system of laws following that they don't even abide by? How do you expect to get any kind of accomplishment as far as that's concerned when we, again, all these different variables, having billions of dollars for education and for health, and look at where we are today, 2026. But we want to play politics as usual. We want to sit down in these very same places for years here, in this very same studio, and talk about how good for nothing people are. Bunch of good for nothing, death and that. And when the same people who are good for nothing sit in front of them, they become honorable. And these are people that we looked up to for years. And I think we have to stop that kind of politics as usual if we expect to get anywhere. I don't know how we're going to expect to speak about any real changes if we don't begin by changing ourselves, right? And truth is a constant. So, that being said, it's the top of the hour, and at any minute, do expect uh, for us to do that. Um, we're going to work around it, right? Better must come. Um, there's a talk on social media, and I'm getting it secondhand because me, I personally don't have time to follow a lot of social media platforms. Who say what, who say what, who did what, who's posting what. And it's good to know, right? So I'm getting information um, from a secondhand perspective um, that people are starting to realize that there are people coming into the territory who don't look like us, who wants to start manipulating the current status that we have and the current suffering that we're going through, being that we have a bunch of incompetent, untrustworthy individuals running the government who have elevated theft to a to a place where it's a cultural thing right now, misappropriating funds, not accepting their fiduciary responsibilities. Where sticky fingers is not even sticky fingers anymore. The whole body, everybody, all parts of the body is stealing. How do we come? How do we arrive at that here now? Identify us as a people, because I don't remember growing up, even though it existed when we were smaller, that these things were just, I'm pretty sure they existed then, but not to the level that they've taken it to. None of it is good. And those individuals are here. And if you haven't realized, they're planting seeds. And the seeds that they planted doesn't include you. And the one that they planted that includes you doesn't include respecting what you should be doing right now, what we should be doing right now. And know that it's not my opinion, it's a fact. It's a truthful fact. So, how and why would you deny truth? To please who and to produce what? And we have to get to a point where we're not doing things or saying things maliciously or vindictively, but just speaking the truth. And we're all going to fall short at one particular point in time because it is work to be had. The powers and principles of Ma'at. And again, this is going in one ear for some people and going out And already some people are already aware of what I'm saying. But let's deal with those individuals who are somewhere listening and they're getting there. Let's know. And I know for a fact that yeah, people are having the confidence now to know that they're intelligent enough to do. You can see the results, you can hear the results, right? Because we have to start fishing people and stop waiting for people to teach us how to fish. Those of us who know how to fish, we have to start teaching people to fish. I think I'm trying to do so on my part anyway. May not be on this platform, right? But I'm trying my best to make sure that I'm not giving people fish, but I'm teaching people how to fish. It's easy for you to walk into a place and give everybody things that they don't have and just give them things that they're interested in, to just feed them things. That's a control mechanism that sometimes people use with people, giving them, giving. And people look up to the person who's keep on giving them, not realizing the thing that they're giving you is preventing you from being able to give to somebody else or to learn yourself how to do. So we have to start and stop looking for the heroes and the sheroes, the Superman and the Superwoman, the Savior. The Savior is you. The Savior is we, is us. It's what you teach me and it's what I teach you in confidence that we're going to do something about it, to have integrity, to pass that on to our children, integrity, truth, have confidence in themselves because we have some powerful, intelligent little children. We have geniuses among us. And it's very possible the spirit of the little geniuses that we have is going to be dulled because they have to deal and come through the garbage that we, the adults, the older generation is leaving for them and is showing them right as we speak. There is no way anyone is going to tell anyone who has integrity and intelligence that it's okay for a mother to show a little 2-year-old, 3-year-old walk up and wind up and scantily dress and putting their private parts out in the open amongst people at a time when it doesn't make sense, and men doing the very same thing. That child is going to be able to discern whether or not when somebody is trying to abuse them and turn around and criticize because you have that platform, Epstein and everybody else who was caught in the web. It makes no honest sense. Anyone to try and justify that. Carnival here, carnival, you stop your nonsense because in the carnival you know exactly what kind of carnal activity takes place, and you show me how is that going to carry over to teach a child how to discern how to carry themselves with pride when it comes to not operating outside of what your original culture would have allowed. The nature of the drummer and the dancer still exists. The drummer beats and the dancer drums to every note that he beats. And before he, to every note that the dancer moves. And that's how our ancestors carried themselves, performing or enjoying culturally what we did. It wasn't done for the purpose of performing sexual acts. It wasn't an open, indirect orgy, so to speak. But people want to participate in that because that's who they are. Birds of a feather is going to flock together eventually. Sometime all you have to do is disrupt where everything is, and the birds eventually would fly and they would gather. But you can't expect us to progress and have a competent future and society when we are trying to make excuse of a particular type of behavior. Can't do it. Theft in the territory, sticky fingers, people who don't. Life can be very difficult for a lot of people who don't have the means, honestly. And they're creating the environment where sometimes some people have no choice. I'm afraid to say it. That sounds, they have a choice in a sense. But when a system is designed for you to believe that you have no choice, but then you do have a choice. But the reality of it is that in a time where, especially if you have children, the children should not be going without food, or the elderly the same way. What puts a person in that position is the system that they're living in and under and with. So when are we going to get enough people honestly in government to remove the necessity, or the fact that people are going to justify, well, I have to eat to cover my house. I have to be able to pay rent and electricity and all these gas price. I have so sticky fingers, well, they're doing it. Those in governments are doing it. That's how they get theirs, and it's not going to be taken away from them. So I'm going to do what I have to do to defend This is what's happening here in the territory. And again, if in the territory the people that's occupying this space who are here now, if we don't get enough collectively and at least arrive at an average where people have enough integrity so they're not going to steal, even with a lot of the suffering, nothing is going to change, no matter what kind of politicians you bring. If we don't have a moral character, if you check the moral fiber of your people, and according to the moral fiber of your people, then you could understand more or less what control you can probably have in your government. So when we see what's happening now, and you look at the employment ratio, government versus private, what that looks like, who's a major employer, the private sector or the government. And then you have to figure out if the government is filled with people who are just stealing, murderers, pedophiles, before they go into government, what do you expect us to do? How do you expect us to be able to move past this if the people who are right now have intentions to stay in these government seats, have the very same characteristics of the people we're complaining of who are actually in government? How are we going to move away from that if we don't check the moral fiber of our communities, of the people in the territory? How? So yes, a political season, political aspirants here and there. You have the incumbents who want to stay, those who are leaving. Um, and I'm going to welcome them at some point in time because I have some questions I would like to ask people. And they're not the kind of questions of politics as usual. It's just truths. We don't have time for politics as usual. The friending up and the allegiances that are at best questionable when the foundation of the root of it has to be truth. Where lies is a great study, and hypocrisy the greatest employer. So when the political season is going to come, the time I will sit down with whoever wants to sit down with me, because it's not going to be concerted or structured reasoning. They're organic, based on truth. And unfortunately, we have to go through a period of you don't know who's going to deliver what until they get in there, right? Until they get in these offices. What does that look like? Well, I would ask people to get familiar to know who everyone is before they get into, because as you can see right now, you have a lot of them in there who have left some people surprised. I just witnessed some characters this morning, I tell you. Politics as usual, people, is not going to get us anywhere. That's what happens where we're at right now. Please do, if you don't understand what politics as usual is when I say it and repeat it. It's everything I've been talking about, the friending up. Who's going to give who a job based on what was done for, with, and to them? Who is avoiding truth just to get a personal reward, materially or non materially? Who is carrying that honest character to deliver the people from where we're at under this colonial structured system where a colonial mindset at best is still among them, the best of them? Well, apparently better must come, right? And we have to determine when is better going to come. Because the last time I did check, we don't have time. So you have to do what you have to do now in preparation of when better comes. But can't wait for better. We have to do it now. And we don't have the time and the convenience of it. But we have to do something, right? Rallying around from town to town, saying things for people to sound good and feel good, doing things for people to like you, um, to be able to get their votes. That's not going to get us anywhere where we need to be. What people need is a constant and honest truth. Sometimes the truth is going to hurt, but sometimes they have to get the hurt because we're intelligent people so we can get to healing. And the healing is to produce the very things that's going to eliminate us from the complaint system that we're under based on the things that we're facing and suffering from those who are in offices who are not doing the things that needs to be done, the things that we are bringing uh, and sharing here in the communities day to day. Who's doing this? Who's doing that? We're suffering. We have to make that change, and the change has to start before you get into office. If it's a semi change, we'll expect things to semi change because for the past 60 years, it's been semi changing all the way. So nothing has changed now. And if we've gotten to the point where things are beginning to change, make sure that people are going to be in office who are going to actually keep the change going to remove the chain from off our necks. So if what's happening now under the current political system and structure is starting to plateau and there's going to be a downfall, we have to make sure that we have people who are ready to carry that through uh, for what it represents as opposed to doing so or being in a position not to allow that change to happen. I can see where those who are seeking to benefit financially with the kind of monies that they've been getting and the kind of laws that they've been violating and not currently in prison, as opposed to going through this whole indictment process and not, before you know it, conviction on who for what and how long and to what extent. Is the change really occurring? Or is it the same, a different form of the changes we've been expecting in these institutions of politics and in government? How is that going to be done? And if you hear somebody's name bleeding into the mic, is somebody shouting somebody's name next to who should not be doing that. But I'm going to have to address that at some particular point in time. So if you've been hearing that, I apologize for that. Um, yeah, and we have work to do here in the territory to make sure that we're honestly going to address the things and not looking at the mediocrity that's been before us back and forth to see our road patch here, a road patch there. Um, how they're being patched, how long is it going to last? Does it make sense? All these different little patches of roads in the territory back and forth here and there. where the whole islands, all three, should be, with the amount of monies uh, flowing through this territory, all our roads should be paved with gold. The whole infrastructure should be done correctly, but we're not doing that because we have people who are not representing us the way we're supposed to be represented, which is the truth. And you cannot represent us correctly if your mindset is of that of a colonial structure. For us to be able to come from under this scourge, you have to have a completely different mindset, a different spirit for that real change to come. If not, again, there's transient people coming here planting seeds. You don't define yourself, someone will define you. We're still talking about whether or not the government hasn't come forward with a history in school. You try to explain that to people from the way they process things. How long has it been since Judge, God, his name is a waste of time. He has not produced anything to this day, right? And it's sad because many of us fall into that and we have to fall out of it. And the way we fall out of it is making truth a constant. We have individuals in the legislature who are amending a sentence and amending a word here and there. They're coming forward and restructuring um, laws that are already in the books. And because we, the people, are not monitoring the laws, all the laws are there. We don't know when something is new from when something is old. Some of us can tell just from how these bills are presented. We can tell that it already exists. Um, and at best, a lot of things is change word, change a section here, change something introductory, and every time they introduce a bill, it's always taxing on the people. It's nothing for relief. It's nothing for to benefit the children. Yet there's more monies available now, or made aware now anyway, than there was 20, 40 years ago. There's a small community of people who are aware of the fact that any monies that come from the United States in the form of federal funding isn't money belonging to the United States, it's belonging to the territory here. But if we don't know certain things, we believe that they're giving us favor by the way of grants, you know, by way of allotting certain monies for the territory to be used. And we don't know any better, right? Because we think that they're giving us their money. That money belongs to the people here in the territory. But if the colonizer can have you believing that it's their money that they're giving you or loaning you, giving you an opportunity to use, it benefits them. Where is the civics in the schools? Who is waiting for anyone right now to implement civics in the schools? Who is waiting for anyone right now to implement, even though it's under law, teaching history in schools? Who is doing that? We have a commissioner, assistant commissioners, you have community activists, you have all these people, people who are hooked up, hooked in, hooked out, friended up, friended in, part of academia, the status quo groups. Yet our schools are being shuttered unnecessarily. No pushback there. Money is flowing in and out for destruction of schools and rebuilding, demolition of schools and rebuilding of schools. But it's not the schools that we need. They've destroyed those. They've shuttered those, growing grass and raising chicken and horses in some, even though some of them still have the books in the schools. When you want to ruin a nation, ruin a people, those are the things that you do. And who's helping it? You can't blame the Anglo-Saxon, labeled white, labeled European, labeled Caucasian. You can't blame them. Though the foundation of what these spirits are migrating to is pretty much laid by them, you still can't blame them. But we have to understand it's spiritual warfare, people. And nothing to do with family or friends, have to do with spirit. And when we are going to continue to suffer, and you have people trying to get to be in places to get credit because they want to hear their names called. Um, it's reminding me of a chess game that was being played between two individuals, and people here in the territory were the pawns. And in order to address a particular area in government, one individual was very well studied and the other wasn't. The one who wasn't knew a lot of the compounding effects around the status on this game. And the other person who was well learned had studied exactly what it was. But the two was playing the game the same way, where they were using people as their pawns to achieve the same thing, actually, in different ways, both lacking clarity and understanding on a few things, having clarity and knowledge on a lot, but lacking on a few things. And the few things that they lacked are the very few things that created monsters in the territory while they're trying to address the system playing chess with each other using these people's pawn who was glad to put their name on things that for documents they didn't write. While this was going on, they was creating a monster. And they created the monster and the residue now is here and they're still trying to deal with it, right? And the monster is not going to go away because they were both playing politics as usual. And in the whole madness, the residue has even created a stronger foothold for the monster right now. And you sitting down trying to find out when is truth going to become the constant so a people can achieve some level of liberation and confidence in self enough for it to extend to our children so we can address the things that our children needs to be addressed right now so that they can have a very bright future and to be able to be in a position where they can defend themselves, knowing what the world is going to look like in 20 years, 25 years, knowing what we're suffering right now in the territory. Where are the lands? Who is owning the lands? How they get ownership of the land and territory and the properties here? What created the position for them to be able to do that? It is not only unique to us here, it is happening all over the globe and the planet. At best, we can be the best stewards of this land, whatever land your head is on. Be the best stewards of it, protect it. Because there's people coming here who's seeking to remove you. And they'll smile with you. They'll tell you all the necessary greetings. Good afternoon. And in the bottom and the recesses of their heart, they don't mean it. You see it when you sit down. And I bow to no one. I make no apologies to anyone for anything. Not even your misunderstanding of what I'm trying to say. Let's live an honest life, right? And that's what it means. It doesn't mean it's a temporary thing. If a truth is going to be a constant, and then, well, excuse for this and well, excuse for that, putting things aside. I guess some of us have gotten to the point in life where you're just not going to accept mediocrity, and no matter what, even if it's causing you a level of suffering, if you want to call it that. I'm jumping in this water because I can swim. It's not easy telling people the truth all the time because they seem to get offended, and then they try to find ways and how it's, you're supposed to tell them, and you tell them in a very nice and calm way, no matter what it is, and they still figure that it's abrasive, even though you're not an abrasive person. But when are we going to get to the point where we're going to stop accepting mediocrity? I don't know who have time for it. We keep on with this nonsense. It's 60 years since we've been able to control our own selves and government here right now. And look at where we are. Look at the things that we are complaining about. It's because we're under a colonial structure. This is how it works when you're a colony. And we have Negroes, Sambos, and the Coons. Understand what that is. I don't want people to think I'm calling people out any names. Terminology reflects a particular type of person in spirit, how they behave, how they carry, how they live when they're there doing these things, doing these biddings. And we have so much things here in the territory to address. But let's start first by addressing ourselves. The political season arena is quite a way off. Few months. It's going to be here before we know it, right? Not a problem. But let's see in the next month and a half, well, the next month and a half, there is going to be a platform, and everyone who is an incumbent wanting to stay in seat, and everyone who is an aspirant who wants to go into seat, if they have integrity, they will sign on to it. Because that platform then is going to generate enough deep background check to see what kind of character we're dealing with, who wants to go in to fill the empty seats and who wants to stay in these seats. And they'll gladly sign on to it because they have integrity and they have nothing to hide. And if it's one thing you have to look at, is what the common denominator, what's the character and personalities of those who are in government right now, who are sacrificing the health and the well-being of the people that they're there to represent the interests of. There's a common character, a personality in people. So if you could take that they have for those who are in government, the legislative branch, the executive, the judicial, and all the branches and divisions of government, if you take a whole, I don't want to call it a survey, but if you check the algorithms, if you do the necessary, there's a common denominator as far as that personality is concerned. And you would see those who doesn't have it, what they're producing or they're failing to produce only because they have to deal with people trying to sabotage it. You'll see what that personality looks like. And then you could apply it to those who are willing to come in to fill the seats. If you find those characteristics, those are the people you're not going to vote for. Because then you put those people in office who are going to do the very same thing that those who was there. It's going to be done at a different level, right? To some degree, but nonetheless, it's the same BS at the end of the day. So they will be willing to sign on to that because they have nothing to hide. They have no skeletons in the closets. If they have 2 and 3 closets, those 2 and 3 closets are going to be had, right? And what's in them. If they're common things, well, they're common things, not necessarily taken away from the structure of the suffering, that mentality, that personality, that spiritual stuff that's in offices right now that's making us as a people suffer. That will be removed. That's the only way you can prove if people are coming before you with integrity. Because we need change, and change is not going to come again with politics as we usually do it. The popular person, the person who gives them a little dab, a heads up, fried fish here, a little Johnny cake there, go rum here, back and forth. These little different little privileges here, back and forth. I move you to the front of the line, hook up. All this nonsense that goes on in government, depriving somebody who's qualified of the job from not getting the job. And to speak of that, the process of them coming into the territory to have the population qualified has only been slowed down because of the necessary, I should say, because of what's happening currently, distracting away from the elements of the United States, focusing on these territories with what they have to do to structure themselves internationally to try and keep the ground of superiority throughout the world. So, save for that, they're not here doing it. If not, people, we have to give thanks to our ancestors, many of them whose name we don't know, who stood up, suffered things we can't imagine, to have us in a position now to be at least have intelligence and integrity to continue the pursuing of being free. So we don't believe that it's going to be a fleeting illusion. And it's going to be had because liberation is here. Even though in this territory they're telling the world that they want to remain a colony and they don't care what anybody says. And that's what Sambo does. That's what Sambo did. That's what a coon does. Somebody who's spiritually broken and who was born always be subordinate to be a slave. You put these people in these particular places and they do the bidding. You don't have to do anything. Um, so that being said, it's a lot of talking. Um, but I am putting what I talk about to paper. Now that I am doing something about it. Um, we got to start doing something about it. And we know who we are because we're doing things anyway, right? Um, the difficulty is there, but the reward is that you're trying to do it with integrity. Because at the end of the day, you're doing it with children in mind. And if it's not that you're carrying little spirits in your soul in memory when you're doing things and saying things, then we're going to lose the war if we're not doing it, having our children in mind. Everything we're doing right now in every form of government, no matter what it is as adults, if we're not doing these things and our children are in our minds when we're doing it, it's always going to be a failure because you're doing things just to satisfy yourself, make yourself feel good. You're getting that paycheck, people calling your name, they're saying these different little things, and you're benefiting from it for right now. It sounds good. But what really have you done to secure the interests of our future, which is our children? What have we honestly done? You know? Good morning, caller. Thank you for calling.
Yes, good there.
I'm sorry?
Thank you. I'd like a contribution as a possible accepting call today.
Yeah, you're on now. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, greetings, brother. You know,
Greetings.
touching some very serious topics there. You're touching on very serious topics, you know. You know what happened is that the situation, I have all the recycled people running for office, you know what I'm saying? So the question to ask them with existing issues we have is what plan they have, what remedy they have to correct them. As I was saying, that's what we have to confront them with before they get in. If they can't give a realistic solution, then it should not be voted in. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We have a lot of promises, a lot of campaign slogans, but then with the actual factual information you're going to use to correct, for example, the hospital situation. You know, it's a crucial situation where people get vulnerable and have to wait. It must mean immediate, not wait. You know, there's hesitation. So these are the kind of things we're facing. And people are running and been there for something 8 or more years. and they have not corrected that situation. So these are the things that people have to question about. If they can't answer, then they should not get it. You know what I'm saying? Another major issue is the audacity of the Democratic Party in order to get your court system right now. They've been challenging court, you know. And what's really egregious is that they have all these restrictions for Democrats to be members of the Democratic Party or to run the Democratic Party. But where's the restriction for using taxpayer money to run a necessary primary? If I'm not mistaken, I think I heard that the primary cost was $240,000. Do you have an idea what the primary cost?
I personally don't know.
I think I heard. I was going to check on that. But regardless of what,
maybe someone can call and teach us that.
Would that be helpful? Yeah, because what I'm saying is that, you know, if you have all these restrictions, when it comes to collecting money from the general fund, you don't have a restriction. It's just giving money. You know what I'm saying? And listen to the fact that, you know, you don't need a primary. You just hold a convention among your membership and have a straw poll, and who gets the longest straw wins. If you're the one going to run, simple solution.
It's as simple as
but
that.
They have to with the exclusive club, their privileged club. They have to have one primary sometimes. Doesn't make any sense to that.
And call it, the thing with that call is that you're right, it doesn't make any sense because and it doesn't matter. I'm not going to call any political party Democrat or Republican because it could easily be Republican doing, but right now, knowing the nature of how that Democratic Party is made up, not everybody is truly a Democrat. Some people just registered there. They were just doing that as a way of participating in the primary to bring forward a candidate based on their personal ideology, right? So they were registering as a Democrat to participate in the primary to bring forward the candidate that was going to not affect anything because they had a candidate that they were going to support outside of the primary. The strategy right now, I say that to say this, and I agree with you, Colin. What asking these people questions, right, and asking them to see how they're going to answer. That's how things have been handled over the years. They ask them what they intend to do when they get in and what the intentions are. They say all these things, right? You know, you're going to be fed things that requires a particular answer to get a particular result, right? But when you have to accept that you have nothing to hide and you have integrity and you're willing to sign on to a platform that's going to do metrics on you, now we're going to figure out who the true revolutionaries are, right? Because if I'm coming before you to represent you and I have nothing to hide as far as the characteristics of what we complain about in government, then I don't have to worry about that. You see? So you'll be willing to sign on to that because you have confidence in self and you could look for anything you would like to because what you're going to find is little superficial little things, but you're not going to find the major things, the character, right, that we're complaining about in government. Misuse of funds, banking fraud, insurance fraud, real estate fraud, all these different things, theft, occupying workspaces that you're not qualified for because you're friended in. All these different little things, you know, where have you been involved in smuggling, stealing monies? It can't even come to my head right now. But Carly, you're right.
Another major issue too is that how the system is set up. That, you know, most times you go to get a job in most industries or any government agency, private agency, you have what is called a probationary period, usually 90 days. The sentence's probationary period is 2 years, not like 4 years, which is totally ridiculous. Are they what you call better than us? I mean, it's just trying to create a class system.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know what they do? When they get, whether it's the judicial, executive, or legislative, they have the title honorable. But the job does not make you honorable. It's only honorable, you said before you get in office. Integrity. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So
that's a colonial kind of identity or kind of title, you know, to make you appear as if you feel so great when in fact
you're not.
It's just a false attribute.
Right. Exactly. It's like when people hear the word leader and they think that leader means good. Leader is just a title. You know, could mean bad, it could mean good. It's just a title. That's, you know, you are a leader, right? Not a problem. but that doesn't mean it's good.
What I think is what a misleader. You know what I'm saying? It got bullies and misleaders. Two opposites. And we have a lot of that. The one I can mention.
Carter, what do you think of the current situation concerning two things actually, agriculture and education?
And both of them are, I like support. It's got to be what agriculture will be achieved for several decades now. Since the demise of the King administration, ICM, the department has not gotten the funding it needs and support it needs. As a matter of fact, if the commission is not mistaken, the agriculture is the lowest paid commissioner, and they're going to reach them out the funding. So that in itself shows you that the right level to keep it to a point, not making major progress. Education now, that should be another priority as well, because we say, that's a younger generation going for the future. We have seen where, for example, which we agreed this again, where they had a situation where a student was caught with a fan, after the support expected by family education.
Mm-hmm.
So that obviously was not an inspection. But as I say, I only with the better party thing. Solar panels were stolen from the complex. Kitchen supplies from the area,
yep,
from Philip and Woodson.
Mm-hmm.
So the money they want to hold on primary for the foot to recover those items. There's a problem, education is a problem. I mean, for example, days that they miss, for example, whether it be weather or the interruption because of water, all those days made up, for example, Woodson. I think Woodson makes close to 2 weeks more. When you get to school, because it was not prepared during the summertime, another craziness. Just a donkey attitude. You have a whole summer to prepare, and then when the school's open, it's not ready. But the main problem, it gets with parents. The most parents see the education department school as a babysitting service. Give them a break. You know what I'm saying? They don't have the same input as they should if we're going to private school by paying money. They're in free education, so they don't care attitude. Not every parent, but many parents. Such a major problem why the education department have the pressure to come up better and do better for students,
Realize that some of those households where those children are, the parents themselves needs help. They have psychological and spiritual scars, and the Institute of Learning. We're talking about school that's supposed to be the sanctuary to accommodate or to assist in some manner. That's what we're talking about right now. The millions of dollars that they waste, and they're going back to the democratic issue and them paying for primary and all this stuff. It's what you accept when you want to adapt a colonial system and you want to follow all the variables that the colonial system offers you. You entertain those kind of foolishness, right? So the foolishness of who's going to take the Democratic Party to court for them violating a voting process under a colonizer, to me, it suits the purpose of addressing it, right? But you still don't get rid of the colonial system that you're complaining about, because when you fix that, then it allows for something else to occur. And when we don't have the mindset of getting from under this colonial system, we're going to be participating to the extent where we're taking these places, these institutes to court for violating and for not proving over the years, having followed the law to the letter. Then it goes right back into even the individuals who are doing that, because then they have to qualify why are you where you are based on the fact that you're complaining that certain things weren't followed properly. Not a problem. But how are you going to correct that? Because it's going to come back right to their doorsteps. The very same thing. Right? That's the point. So now,
this is the problem we have.
And the judicial system is not going to rule in their favor anytime soon. They're going to delay, they're going to promote, they're going to deny, they're going to do all these things, right? At the end of the day, because you've accepted the colonial system. So you feel you're doing good by taking them to court, given proper document and process, because you feel good about doing something under the colonizer system. So which lands away for for a counter to be had or for a delaying process, because at the end of the day, when you quite take for instance, this past election caller should have never occurred from the get-go, right? But people chose to do different. No matter what you presented before them, they choose to do different. So now here comes this election with the same problem, with an election that should have never taken place. That's a 2024. The results of that is now going to question everything else. This should have been stopped 2024. But people were colonial minded in doing things, and they were insisting back and forth. So here comes the problem. So the problem has not gone anyway, caller, right? So now they're adding to it now by finding discrepancies in procedures and laws having to do with what? Whether you're Republican or Democrat, who's violating, who's benefiting, who's feeding, who back and forth, who's structured, who's more predominant than the next, but you're still structuring yourself based on this colonial system. So how are you going to escape that when your mindset hasn't changed? You're looking for changes. You're looking for changes when you have not changed your mindset, as you would not be worrying about what and who dominate rules and laws, right? And at the end of the day, you abide by them. You're still not liberated in spirit. So the system.
That's a major problem. That's again the people. Again, who board when you consider these two things. It's like a sporting event. As a this with that team.
Exactly. That's all it is. And we're agreeing now to get rid of this, to bring in this, but at the end of the day, they still participate in the system, and they feel good that they've accomplished it because they're doing it. They're going to promise a change, right? But I can guarantee you that if it's done with this colonial structured system, that change that they're talking about is going to be minimal and temporary for a few. Any changes coming outside of that is because that we're on the eve of getting rid of this terrible shift on what that's going to look like here in the territory anyway, right? So if change is going to come, it's going to come as a result of, not because of what they're producing here. While trying to participate.
Right, the concept, exactly.
Right.
The problem is that we don't have the numbers at this point to effect a change. Like, there's no IT work, that's running, they're giving promises. But of course, that depends on what support you're going to get inside there. Excuse me, you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because, how long you're going to basketball player, Michael Jordan, Tim Duncan, whatever, you can argue against white people. So that's what I mean. These promise are going to get and do this and do that, but there's no IT work. So, to me, the only solution is for people of integrity to go in a team. As it stands right now, when I recycle garbage, a lot of people have been there before and have done things the contrary. For example, what you call the actual deal. So we're paying millions of dollars every year for the molasses, which is ridiculous. Who supported us that particular, deal?
There you go. You remember the candidates that did it?
Sorry?
You remember?
I don't know all of them. I don't know that was a choice to do, but this is another ridiculous. This thing is ridiculous. How this is colonialism. How can we vote territorially for the gubernatorial candidates, the delegates to Congress, and also the large, but the rest of the are left out? That's what you call first come in your confidence.
And that's why. And Carla, that's why those who structured the revised Organic Act of 1954 are smiling.
Exactly.
They're laughing they laughed all the way to the grave.
Can never bite the tail. This is the problem. You see? So it's a setup. You put so many cocks in the room that you're guaranteed to get a flat tire.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening here. If you're so into the colonial mindset, you don't realize that you're being duped into believing you begin someplace and again a place. You're four-wheel drive and you get to where you're stuck in the mud. So this is the problem. You can't remove them because of the laws and the statutes and all this kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. But because of the illusion of inclusion, or people believe they're getting something to just spinning the wheels. It's very sad. Very sad.
And as we
progress, it's hard to think that way.
As we progress in time, that's exactly what we're suffering. And the integrity is the issue. And that's why the only change we're going to have is to find out. Well, it's not going to be find out. It's going to be shared as to what the common personality and character is, what that looks like in the territory, and find out. And you can always compare what that character, compare who is willing to go into our office carrying those personalities and those characters to make sure that they don't get in, because no matter how they smile before us and whatever you do, they're not going to give the necessary change. Yeah. Because Carl, I want to be, it's very difficult, and I want to believe, right, and I could almost attest to this, that a lot of people who are complaining about the Epstein and who've made the name on the Epstein file, if they were in these places 20 and 30 years ago, that their names would be on the list.
Interesting.
Okay. Because
that's another case that,
because you look,
some people like that who've been involved with that.
So some people, even though some people's name are not going to be made, or didn't make that quote unquote Epstein list and the sagas, only because they weren't in those positions then. You see, if they were in the position around, their name would be, because they're carrying the same characteristics. They're doing the very same thing. It is politics as usual. It's a particular type of personality and a character who does this. The lies and the deception and the friending up and the friending in, this ingenuousness and truth being temporary for them to affect a certain cause. And when they do the cause, they're doing it under the ideology of the colonizer, not separating themselves back and forth. We're not going to get anywhere. I don't care what they say. And the changes are coming from outside, not from here. Any little changes, and we would know what the world looks like. Cognitive dissonance, right? We know what the Stockholm syndrome looks like. We know all these different things, the phenomenon of following. But Carl, I appreciate you calling and reasoning. It's always good to hear, because we're here I'm here to learn anyway. I wish somebody would call and give us what that number is that you were questioning.
Yes, sir. To be continued, if the struggle continues, you have to try and see it as much as you can. Hope many fall for that ground, but there's a lot of barren ground around, barren spots around,
So the whole cry for me, Caller, the whole cry, and I hope these politicians don't try to use it. The whole cry has always been for me: integrity. Integrity at the end of the day.
And that's the bottom line. That's what you're looking for. And the saddest thing is that your ancestors who brought us to this point of overcoming chattel slavery, now we've gone into mental and spiritual to the point where you're actually vomiting in the face of those who brought us to this point. It's a total disrespect to be corrupt after they sacrifice their lives, beating and bruised and inside and killed. It's time for the time, and we continue for that.
Thank you for calling, caller, and always free to call and reason. I'm always willing to learn. And people, let me make one mention, because it's here in my spirit, and I want to remind those who are out there, remind you of this one thing. The Shakira Gautier case has not gone to rest. The case in particular of the police officer who lost her life in the evidence room in St. Croix, that case has not gone to rest. There's currently the former Chief Howell, who on social media put out 6 hours of him explaining how corrupt the territory is and how his involvement was with the drug trafficking, and to what extent, and he's speaking of who was doing what. He spoke about assassination attempts and assassinations by calling out and indirectly who was involved. This is the former Chief Howell who's doing these things. He's mentioned things about the destroying evidence because of the room not cataloging these things for years, and in the process admitting to destroying evidence right in front of people's faces. It's good when people talk. Sometimes you have to listen to them, right? Let them talk. All these things is being said, but never mentioned that one incident that took place in the evidence room under his watch, while talking about the evidence room itself, right? So that case hasn't gone anywhere. just want them and those who are out there to know. And you, the people, need to know that we, the people, are doing something about it. Okay? That hasn't gone. How can we expect to get a remedy to be honest here in the territory if we are willing to be lawless to the extent where we're not paying attention to the very people who elect to go into jobs to keep us going? Uh, to keep us safe, I should say, in this territory, you know, and give thanks to all those police officers who do credible and honest work because they have to work with those who don't. So you give thanks to those police officers who are trying to do the right thing, right? And doing the right thing. And integrity is the order of the day. And it's not a word for these politicians to start throwing before you because they're shameless when they, you know, and I would hope that I don't hear them using it if they're lacking it. But what we are lacking here daily in this territory is people with integrity. And people, like always, never surrender your rights, never give up your rights, never do that to buy, to buy, to buy, to buy privilege or to be given a privilege. And our ancestors would always ask us to walk good and in favor. See you guys next week.